Blink, this isn't the kind of story you forget. The call came while I was holding her wedding ring. It was cold in my hand, heavier than I remembered. I was sitting on the staircase in the dark, the hallway light flickering like even the house wanted to leave her behind. My phone buzzed again. Felicity. Hey, why is the door locked? Can't get in. I didn't answer right away. I just stared at the doorknob. Her scarf was still hanging on the coat hook. Lipstick smudge on the mirror near the hallway. It all looked so normal. But it wasn't. She had said it was a work dinner. But I saw the message pop up on her Apple Watch the second she left the bathroom that morning. Can't wait to taste you again tonight, winking face, same place? She tried to tilt her wrist away from me. I pretended not to see. I always do. Not tonight. I'd made her favorite pasta before she left. Even grated the Parmesan the way she likes. Big, flaky shreds. She barely touched it. Said she had a headache. And slipped into that red coat she only wore when she wanted someone to look. Now she was outside. Cold. Confused. Caught. I answered the phone. Hey, I said, calmly. Lyle? Why is the door locked? It's freezing and I forgot my key. Can you open it? No, I said. Silence. What do you mean, no? I stood up, still holding the ring. You don't live here anymore. She laughed. Not the sweet kind. The fake, dismissive one. Are you drunk? No, I said again. But I wish I were. I hung up. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I placed the ring on the kitchen table, next to her untouched plate of pasta. And then I walked into the bedroom and started packing. Not her things. Mine. She could have the house. She just couldn't have me anymore. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was heartbroken. That part had already happened. Months ago, quietly, while watching her drift further away, night after night, excuse after excuse. What kept me awake was the clarity. This eerie, echoing clarity. Like I'd finally stepped outside the fog she'd been pumping into our lives. She called 6 times after I hung up. No voicemails, just calls. One after the other, like a child locked out of her own playground. At 11:18 p.m. she texted, "Are you serious right now?" Followed by, "You're embarrassing yourself." That one made me laugh. Not out loud. More like one of those hollow exhales where you suddenly see how warped reality's been. I walked through each room slowly. I didn't smash anything or throw clothes onto the lawn. I just looked. The house felt unfamiliar, like I'd been subletting it from someone else. Her perfume still lingered in the hallway. That stupid Instagram wall with the fake ivy leaves and LED sign that said, "Good vibes only," made me want to rip it down with my teeth. I didn't. I'm not that guy. Instead, I picked up her copy of Atomic Habits from the coffee table. She never read past page 7, and slipped my wedding photo between the pages like a bookmark. Petty, maybe, but satisfying. Around 1:30 a.m. I heard tapping at the door, then knocking, then her voice, muffled and shrill. "Lyle, open the door. This is ridiculous." I turned off the lights, sat on the floor of the guest room. She banged harder. My phone vibrated again. Another text. "You better not touch my stuff." That one made my stomach turn. Not because it was aggressive, but because it showed her priority. Not what she'd done. Not the betrayal. Just her things. At 2:03 a.m. the knocking stopped. A car door slammed. Tires peeled out. And the silence that followed was louder than anything I'd heard in years. I closed my eyes, rested my head against the cold wall, and whispered to no one, "Now she knows I know." By morning, the silence had shifted. It wasn't peaceful anymore, it was waiting. The kind of quiet that sits just behind your shoulder, whispering that something is about to happen. I didn't go to work. I called in emotionally wrecked, which was probably the first honest thing I've said at that job in 6 months. I made coffee, stared at the wall, and watched the steam rise from my mug like smoke after a fire. Then I heard it, the jingle of keys at the front door. I forgot she had a second set hidden in her car's glove box. The lock clicked, but the chain held. I hadn't removed it. "Are you serious right now?" she called from the other side. "You're locking me out of my own house?" I didn't answer. I wanted her to say it. I wanted her to explain where she'd been, who she'd been with, why she smelled like cologne that didn't belong to me. But instead, she pulled out her phone, and moments later, mine buzzed. Open the door, Lyle. Don't make this into a thing. I didn't respond. I walked to the kitchen, picked up the note I'd written the night before and slid it under the door. 10 lines, carefully worded. No anger, just truth. I told her I knew. I told her I wasn't screaming, breaking things or begging, because she wasn't worth that kind of pain anymore. I told her to come back at noon when I'd be gone, and she could take whatever she wanted, as long as she didn't take my peace again. She went quiet. I imagined her crouching, reading it under the porch light like some twisted romantic comedy gone wrong. Then I heard her leave. No slam this time, just a quiet retreat. And for the first time in what felt like years, I took a breath that didn't hurt. I wasn't free yet, but I'd put the scissors to the rope. And somewhere, maybe in the attic of my chest, a version of me finally whispered, "Good. Keep cutting." By noon, the house didn't feel like mine anymore. It felt like a crime scene, and I was both the victim and the idiot who left the door open. I didn't take much. Just a suitcase, my old camera, 2 shirts I actually liked, and Milo's leash. Yeah, I took the dog. He never looked at her the way he looked at me. No hesitation. Just loyalty. I left everything else. The TV she picked out. The headboard she begged me to mount. Even my hoodie she always stole when she wanted to pretend we were still close. I let her keep that, too. I didn't want anything that smelled like pretend. I parked 2 blocks away and waited. She showed up exactly at 12, like she was clocking in for a shift. She looked tired. Or maybe I just never noticed how empty her face had become. She paused before going inside, like she expected me to jump out and beg her to stop. When I didn't, she unlocked the door, walked in, and disappeared. 35 minutes later, she walked back out with 2 suitcases and a bag of makeup. That was it. No tears. No dramatic exit. Just like a guest checking out of a hotel. I followed her silently with my eyes from down the street. She didn't look back once. That's when it hit me. She had already moved out emotionally long before her body ever stepped out that front door. That night, I checked her Instagram. Her profile picture was already changed. New photo. Same red coat. Different background. A dimly lit bar I'd never been to, with a cocktail in her hand and a stranger's arm just barely cropped out. The caption read, "New energy, only kiss mark." I didn't cry. Not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't know how anymore. It's like my emotions had turned to sawdust, dry, fragile, useless. So I just stared at the screen and whispered, "Good luck, Felicity. You're going to need it." 3 days later, I got a call from an unknown number. I let it ring, called again. I let it ring again. On the 3rd call, curiosity won. I answered, expecting maybe a scammer or one of those robotic, "Your car warranty has expired" messages. But it wasn't. It was him. I didn't even know his name, but I recognized his voice instantly. I'd heard it once. Barely audible. In the background of a voice memo Felicity accidentally sent me weeks ago. It saved it. I don't know why. Maybe because part of me already knew I'd need proof one day. "Hey, this is weird," he said. "But I think we need to talk." There was a long silence. I didn't say anything, because what the hell do you even say to a man who's been sleeping with your wife behind your back? He continued, nervously. "Look, I didn't know she was married. She told me you guys were separated. That she was just staying with you until the lease ended. I found your number on her emergency contact when she left her phone at my place." I didn't say a word. My breathing went flat. The whole room tilted a little, like my body knew I shouldn't be listening to this, but my brain was dragging me along anyway. She's not who I thought she was, man. I think she's done this before. I mean, not just with me. There were messages on her phone. Other guys. Same lines. Same photos. I don't know what her deal is, but I thought you deserved to know. My heart didn't shatter. It collapsed inward like a rotten building. I wasn't even angry at him. He sounded just like me. Confused. Used. Disposable. I asked one question, the only one I could muster. Why are you telling me this? He paused. Because I think she's playing both of us. And maybe more. Then he hung up. I sat in the parking lot outside my motel for almost 2 hours, replaying the words. I wasn't just betrayed. I was part of a pattern, a cycle, a list. She didn't fall out of love. She never knew what love was to begin with. And suddenly, locking that door didn't feel like an ending. It felt like the very first chapter of a story I didn't even know I was in. I didn't plan to follow her. That wasn't the point. I had already let go, or at least I thought I had. But when I stopped by the bank to close the joint account, I saw it, 2 recent withdrawals. Large ones. One from her usual branch, the other from a new one across town. I asked for details, but the teller looked at me with that rehearsed corporate sympathy and said she wasn't allowed to disclose anything without her present. My name was still on the account, but somehow I didn't matter anymore. That night, I drove past her place. Not to confront her, just to confirm the world hadn't completely lost its mind. Her car wasn't in the driveway. The lights were off, but a delivery guy pulled up while I sat parked 2 houses away. I watched her come outside in a silky robe I didn't recognize, take a brown bag with 2 containers inside, and smile like she hadn't left scorched earth behind her. I don't know what made me do it. Maybe it was the way she laughed at the driver. The same laugh she used to fake shame me for buying extra fries. Maybe it was the robe. Maybe it was the fact that she looked completely fine. Like none of it ever happened. Like I'd been the fool who overreacted. I waited until she went back in. Then I walked to her trash bin. It was already full, packed with takeout containers, receipts, 2 empty wine bottles, and a crumpled parking ticket. I pulled it out. The address didn't match hers. It was a downtown hotel. I knew that hotel. I'd booked our 5th anniversary there. The ticket was time-stamped 2 days before she walked out of my life. 2 days before she cried on the phone and said she was torn. Torn, right? She was rotating men like socks. That's when the calm in me cracked. I wasn't jealous, I was humiliated. She hadn't just broken my trust. She'd made me an extra in her self-centered rom-com. And as I stood there under a dim street lamp, holding that crumpled ticket in my hand, I realized something that made my stomach turn. She never actually apologized. Not once. I thought I was past the breaking point. Turns out I had further to fall. The next day, I got a notification from my email. A hotel survey. Thank you for your recent stay at the Moreland Suites. We hope you enjoyed your premium package experience. I hadn't booked any hotel. I opened the email. Her name was on the reservation, but my email address had been used. She hadn't even bothered to change it. She used my email for a 2-night stay with whoever he was, and had the gall to mark it as a romantic getaway. I scrolled through the confirmation and saw the real gut punch. She'd signed up for the couple's massage. Under partner name, she had typed mine. She was lying to the hotel, lying to herself. Or maybe it was all a joke. Maybe I was the joke. I don't know what kind of twisted psychology was at play, but it broke something permanent in me. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I bought a burner phone. I created a new email. I logged out of every joint account we ever had and locked them down with passwords she didn't know. I filed an official address change at the post office and had every single piece of mail forwarded to a coworker's place across town. And then I made one last stop, her mother's house. Not for revenge. Not to start drama. But because her mom had once pulled me aside at Christmas and whispered, "If she ever breaks you, don't disappear. Let me know first." She opened the door in silence and stepped back like she'd been waiting for this moment. I didn't need to explain. She already knew. And then, with the softest voice I've heard in months, she handed me a flash drive. "I don't know if this helps," she said, "but I found it in her old laptop when I was fixing it last year. I didn't watch it, but you should." I drove away with my hands shaking, the flash drive burning a hole in my pocket. I hadn't planned on finding anything else. I thought I knew the worst of it. But as I pulled into the motel and plugged the drive into my laptop, something told me I wasn't even close. The flash drive had one folder. No label. No dates. Just 12 video files. I watched the first one and stopped it halfway through. It was her In our bedroom, laughing on a video call with someone I didn't recognize, holding up one of my shirts like it was a prop in some dark comedy. He still thinks I'm working late. Sweet, clueless Lyle. He even made soup tonight, she said, giggling. The other person laughed too. Ah, that's cute. You should marry him. For insurance. She shrugged. Already did. Best long con I ever ran. Couldn't watch the rest. I didn't need to. It wasn't about catching her anymore. It was about letting go of the version of her I had been holding onto, the woman who never existed. I shut the laptop, took Milo for a walk, and stood by a lake I hadn't visited since I was a teenager. I threw the flash drive in and watched it disappear beneath the surface. She wanted attention. She wanted to manipulate. I wasn't going to carry her games with me into the next chapter of my life. I deserved more. The next week, I signed the divorce papers and dropped them off without a word. I left a small sticky note that simply read, "Thanks for the freedom." I never heard from her again. Not directly, but I saw her new profile a few months later. A different guy, a different town, same poses, same captions. "He makes me feel alive," she wrote. I smiled to myself. That poor guy has no idea. But I wasn't angry. I was free. Genuinely, deeply free. I moved across the state. Took a job that pays less but makes me feel human again. I adopted a second dog. Milo loves him. And every now and then, I make that soup she once mocked. Just for me. Because now it tastes like peace. If you made it to the end of the story, thank you. Now tell me, what moment shocked you the most? Was it the flash drive? The phone call from her lover? Or the hotel email?